Welcome to The Explainer. Imagine for a second that you're managing a business. Now, picture that every single winter, without fail, the absolute worst employee imaginable clocks in for a shift. We're talking about someone who makes a total mess of the workplace, actively sabotages the environment, and then just quietly disappears right when you finally start noticing all the damage in the spring. Well, today, we're taking this exact human resources nightmare and applying it directly to your yard. We're putting a spotlight on a winter lawn saboteur that takes advantage of your turf when you aren't looking. So get ready, because we're going to treat this incredibly frustrating lawn disease exactly like a terrible seasonal employee who is actively trying to ruin your organization from the ground up.
So who exactly is this terrible seasonal worker? Well, if we look at their official onboarding paperwork, their scientific name is Microdochium navale and Typhula species. But around the office, or around the yard, they basically just go by the name tag snow mold. By definition, snow mold is a fungal disease that sneaks into lawns during cool, damp weather to attack smothered grass. Honestly, think of it as a super stealthy contractor that waits for the absolute most miserable damp weather to clock in, and then it specifically targets the areas of your turf that are already feeling smothered and stressed out.
Okay, let's dive into this mandatory management training. Here's our agenda for today. First, we'll meet the winter saboteur. Second, we'll look at the ideal workspace. Third, spotting the sabotage. Fourth, firing snow mold. And fifth, proactive HR policies. So, jumping right into Section 1, meet the winter saboteur.
Let's actually take a look at their performance review because it really puts things into perspective for us. Employee name, snow mold. Reliability? Well, unfortunately, they get 5 out of 5 stars here. They're highly reliable at showing up exactly when the conditions are right. Professionalism. A very generous 1 star, mostly because they leave an absolute mess. Works well with others? That is a giant red X. They literally smother and outcompete your healthy grass. And the final recommendation, should they be rehired? Absolutely not. This is a fungus that brings exactly 0 value to your lawn's ecosystem.
And here is the biggest misconception that lets this guy slip completely under the radar. Fact check, snow mold does not actually require snow. I know, the name is incredibly misleading, right? In places like North Carolina, for instance, this saboteur clocks in without a single snowflake ever falling from the sky. They don't need a massive blizzard to thrive, they just thrive on cool dampness. So if you're sitting there right now thinking your yard is perfectly safe just because you didn't have to break out the snow shovel this year, you might actually be in for a really rude awakening.
Moving on to Section 2, the ideal workspace.
32 to 60. Just go ahead and lock those numbers in your brain. That is the ideal temperature range in Fahrenheit, where this fungal saboteur does its absolute best, or I guess its worst work. When temperatures drop into this cool, wet little window, snow mold becomes highly active. And it gets especially aggressive when this specific temperature range is combined with excess moisture and shade. It absolutely loves that chilly, damp, transitional weather that kind of bridges late fall, winter, and early spring. Let's break down its complete behavioral profile. This employee loves wet conditions, sitting leaves, heavy thatch buildup, grass that's been left way too tall, and dense shade. Basically, it's the perfect recipe for a neglected workspace. On the flip side, snow mold absolutely hates sunshine, good airflow, clean lawns, and healthy drainage. I'd actually urge you to think about your own yard right now. Are you providing the messy, damp environment it loves, or the clean, well-drained environment that essentially drives it away?
Which brings us to Section 3, spotting the sabotage.
So what does this all mean for you? I'll pose this question directly to you. What does snow mold sabotage actually look like? If you were to walk outside right now, what specific, ugly little signs of fungal damage are you actually scanning the grass for?
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what to look for. You want to memorize these visual markers. First, look out for circular patches that are gray, white, or straw-colored. It's going to look noticeably discolored compared to the rest of the turf. Second, check for matted down, flattened grass. It won't be standing up tall, it almost looks plastered straight to the earth. Third, and this is genuinely the really creepy one, if you go out on a damp morning, you might actually see this thin, web-like fungal growth covering those patches. Finally, these dead-looking spots can be tiny, like just a few inches across, or they can merge into these massive areas spanning several feet.
Okay, quick timeout. If you're currently picturing those huge, webby dead spots in your own yard and you're starting to panic, take a deep breath, because we have some really good news. Snow mold rarely kills an entire healthy lawn. I know it looks incredibly dramatic and ugly, but most healthy turf will totally recover with proper care. You don't have to completely start over from scratch. So we're shifting gears here from just identifying a problem to some empowered recovery.
Let's get into Section 4, firing snow mold.
Here is your structured 5-step termination process to get this guy off the payroll. Step 1 is super simple. Gently rake the area. You just want to lightly loosen up that matted down grass to get some real airflow back into the turf canopy. Step 2, allow the lawn to dry. Cut back on any overwatering and just let Mother Nature do the heavy lifting with some sunshine and wind. Step 3, promote new growth through proper fertilization once the active growing season starts up, so your healthy grass can fill those patches right back in. Step 4, address soil health. If you've got compacted soil or terrible drainage, a liquid aeration can really improve oxygen movement. And finally, Step 5, apply fungicides, but really only if necessary. Severe or reoccurring cases might need that chemical intervention, but honestly, those first 4 steps are going to do the vast majority of the work for you.
And finally, Section 5, Proactive HR Policies.
These are the proactive practices you need to implement right now so this employee is never hired in the first place next winter. First up, don't over-fertilize late in the year. Pumping heavy nitrogen late in the season pushes out all this lush growth right before winter, which leaves the grass super vulnerable to fungal activity. Second, keep the leaves off your lawn. Sitting leaves trap moisture and essentially create this perfect little fungal blanket for the mold to sleep under. Third, mow properly before winter. Do not put your lawn to bed too tall. Shorter grass dries way faster. Fourth, improve your drainage, maybe with that liquid aeration we just talked about. And lastly, reduce thatch buildup. Excess thatch acts like a giant wet sponge holding on to that cool moisture that snow mold desperately needs to survive.
So, the crucial point here is captured perfectly in this final thought. Healthy lawns don't happen by chance, they happen by choice. Snow mold is basically a saboteur that preys on neglect and bad cultural practices. But by managing your turf's environment, by choosing to rake the leaves, choosing to manage your soil health, and choosing the right mowing heights, you literally strip away the conditions this bad employee needs to survive. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought to ponder. If you were to honestly audit your yard's management right now, what choices are you currently making that might secretly be extending a job offer to next winter's absolute worst employee? It's time to take control of your turf. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you on the next one.